When I stepped into the courtroom that morning, I thought I was just another forgotten old woman. But when the judge looked up and whispered my name, the whole room froze. My name is Maeve Hollinger, and I am 68 years old. People think the elderly fade quietly into the background, but sometimes the quietest people carry the deepest histories. Before all this happened, my days were simple. Sunrise coffee in a chipped mug, watering the violets my husband adored, and listening to the ticking of the old kitchen clock. I never imagined my own daughter would be the one to shake the ground beneath my feet. My daughter Dana once clung to my skirts as a child, telling everyone I was her whole world. But years change people, and sometimes love doesn't survive the distance. When she married Derek, a man whose smile never reached his eyes, I felt a shift immediately, as if someone had placed a shadow between us. At first, I overlooked the small things. His cold greetings, his habit of criticizing everything in my house, his way of silencing Dana with a glance. But small things grow roots, and those roots became the very hands that tried to tear my life apart. It was a cloudy Wednesday when they visited. I had spent the morning cooking chicken stew, the dish Dana begged for every birthday as a child, the one that made her giggle and say, "Mom, you put love in the pot." I ironed the good tablecloth, the embroidered one I made when she was 10. Fresh carnations sat in a vase. But when the door opened, joy didn't enter with them. Derek walked in first, tossed his jacket on my husband's old chair, as if it belonged to him, and turned on the TV without a word. Dana followed, wearing a dress I gifted her. But her eyes were distant, cold, almost calculating. "Mom," she said, her tone the same clipped voice she used in front of her in-laws. "We need to talk." My stomach tightened. She sat down as if she couldn't wait to leave. "Derek and I discussed it," she began, "and we've made a decision." He didn't even bother muting the TV. "You shouldn't live here anymore." My breath caught. "This house is too much for you. You're alone. And we need more space. There's a lovely senior residence across town. We already applied for your room." I felt something inside me fracture. A quiet, deep, frightening break. "This is my home," I whispered. "Every memory." "Mom," she cut me off. "Memories stay in the heart, not in old walls." Derek smirked. That same smug curl of the lip I had learned to dread. "We'll take it from here," he said. "We'll handle the move. Just sign what the lawyer brings." My body went cold. I realized then, they didn't want to help me. They wanted my house. And they had already planned everything, without involving the woman who had given her entire life to them. When they walked out, leaving untouched plates and dying flowers, something inside me whispered, "You are being erased." But what neither of them knew is that my husband left behind a secret powerful enough to turn their whole plan to ashes. When your own child starts treating you like luggage they want to drop off, that's when you realize betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it speaks softly, with a smile. After the awful dinner, I spent the night sitting at my small kitchen table, staring at the half-eaten stew, and the empty chairs where my family once laughed. Every creak of the house felt louder than usual. Every shadow felt heavier. This home was built by my husband's hands. Every nail, every brick, every coat of paint held a story. But apparently, stories don't matter to people who are hungry for ownership. The very next afternoon, a man in a crisp suit knocked on my door. He didn't smile. He didn't introduce himself gently. He simply said, "Mrs. Hollinger, I'm here regarding the transfer of property to your daughter." I felt my knees weaken. He placed a stack of papers on the coffee table and clicked his pen. "Dana and Derek said you were expecting this." "No," I whispered. No, I was not. He frowned as if this were inconvenient. Well, the home is in your late husband's name, so you need to sign for the deed transfer. They plan to list the property for sale next month. My heart slammed against my ribs. Sell my home. The lawyer nodded casually, as though discussing the weather. They've already selected a realtor. My hand went cold. That's when I noticed something odd. The name on the transfer documents was spelled wrong. My husband's name was Henry Hollinger, but on the paper it said Hendrik Hollinger. One wrong letter, one small mistake. But it changed everything. This isn't his legal name, I told the lawyer. He paused. Then he said, "Oh, Dana told me you wouldn't mind minor clerical errors." I steadied my voice. A legal deed doesn't allow errors. The lawyer's jaw tightened. "Mrs. Hollinger, just sign the papers." His tone had shifted. Colder, sharper. And that's when the old instinct awakened inside me. The instinct that kept me alive through widowhood, through raising a daughter alone, through working 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads. Something told me, don't sign a damn thing. When he left, frustrated and empty-handed, I immediately phoned Dana. She answered with a sigh. "Mom, the lawyer said you refused to sign." "Yes," I replied, "because the paperwork is wrong." She scoffed. "Oh, for God's sake, Mother. You're being dramatic." My grip on the phone tightened. "I am protecting your father's legacy. I am protecting our future," she snapped. "Derek and I are drowning in bills. We need this sale." My eyes burned. "So you'll take the house? The house your father built for us?" She went silent for a moment. Then she said something I will never forget. "You're old. You don't need space. We do." It hit me like a slap. My own daughter had reduced me to an obstacle. After she hung up, I sat alone in the quiet house. I didn't know where to turn. But I did know one thing. My husband had always kept important things in one specific place. The top shelf of his workshop, behind the rusted toolbox. With trembling hands, I walked there. The workshop smelled like sawdust and old memories. I pulled down the toolbox, dust flying everywhere. Behind it was a small, sealed envelope, yellowed with age. My name written across it, in my husband's handwriting. I pressed it to my chest and cried. Inside that envelope was the truth Dana never wanted me to find. And it didn't just save my home. It destroyed every lie she told. Some secrets destroy families, but the one my husband left behind was about to save me from my own child. I sat at the old workbench with the envelope in my shaking hands. For years, my husband, Henry, used to say, "If anything ever happens to me, just remember, the truth always lives in the place you least expect." Back then, I thought he meant memories. I didn't realize he meant something literal, something hidden. I tore the envelope open gently, as though opening it any faster might break what was left of my heart. Inside were 2 documents and a handwritten note. My breath halted. It wasn't the will we had signed decades ago. It was a newer one. My husband's signature, dated just a year before his death. In it, he stated clearly, the house, the land, the workshop, the savings account, the treasury certificates, all belong to me. Dana is provided for, he wrote, but Maeve needs protection from anyone who might take advantage of her age. My eyes filled instantly. He knew. Somehow he knew. But the next line burned me to my core. If Dana ever attempts to remove her mother from this home, she forfeits her inheritance entirely. I covered my mouth. My husband had seen the shadow in Dana long before I did. The second document, The one that changed everything. The second paper looked old. Edges yellowed, folded neatly. It was a property survey. But not of my house. It was of the empty lot behind our backyard. The place I always thought belonged to the city. Turns out, he bought it. Quietly. Secretly. Paid in full. No loan. No debt. And he had written at the bottom, "Maeve, if you ever feel threatened, build here. Start again. You will never be without a home." The room began spinning. My husband had left me. Not one home, but two. A future. A safety net. A lifeline. Something my daughter never knew existed. The note. At last, I unfolded the small note. His handwriting was shaky, as if written during his final weeks. "My love, if you are reading this, someone is trying to take what is yours. Dana has a soft heart, but an easily influenced spirit. Protect her if she deserves it. Protect yourself. No matter what. Henry." I pressed the letter to my chest and let out a cry so deep. It felt like years of pain pouring out of me. The decision. For the first time in months, I felt something powerful return to me. Strength. This house wasn't just sentimental. It was legally sacred. My husband had locked it behind a wall of iron. And Dana and Derek had no idea. My hands stopped trembling. My breath steadied. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't scared. I was ready. That evening, Dana called again. Impatient and annoyed. "Mom, did you sign the papers?" "No," I said calmly. She groaned loudly. "Mom, stop making this hard. We already paid the deposit for the new place. Derek's counting on the sale. Just sign the transfer." I took a breath and said, "Dana, the house is mine." She laughed. "No, Mom. Dad left it to both of us." I cut her off, firm and cold. "No, Dana. He didn't." Silence. Then Derek's voice in the background. "Her old mind is confused. We'll force it in court." I smiled for the first time in weeks. Let them try. Because the next morning, when we walked into court, they didn't know that I held the one document that could end their entire plan. When I walked into that courtroom, they expected an old woman to break. But they didn't know. I brought the truth with me. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and paper, a familiar scent of justice and old secrets. Dana stood near the front bench, arms crossed, foot tapping impatiently, as if she were the victim in all of this. Derek was beside her, smug as ever, tightening his tie like he owned the place. But when I entered, something flickered across Dana's face. Not guilt, not fear, confusion, as if she couldn't understand why the mother she tried to corner was suddenly standing tall, instead of trembling. I sat down quietly. They didn't know that the envelope hidden in my purse carried enough truth to burn their entire scheme to ash. The judge takes his seat. The bailiff called the courtroom to order. Judge Whitaker, a stern man with kind eyes, adjusted his glasses and read through the file. This case concerns the petition to transfer property from Mrs. Maeve Hollinger to her daughter and son-in-law. Dana stepped forward first. "Your Honor, my mother is aging alone in a house far too large for her. We're only trying to help her transition into a safer living situation." A sweet lie, spoken like honey on glass. Derek added, "Your Honor, she's not capable of managing property or finances anymore. We're stepping in out of love." I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. Their lies were rehearsed, polished, practiced. The judge turns to me. "Mrs. Hollinger," he said gently, "do you wish to transfer the deed to your daughter?" I stood slowly, my voice steady. No, Your Honor. I do not. Dana's eyes widened. Derek muttered, "Oh, here we go." The judge nodded. "Do you have reason to contest their petition?" I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope. The courtroom went silent. The hidden will speaks. I placed the new will on the judge's desk. "Your Honor, my husband updated his will before he passed. My daughter was aware of the original version, but not the revised one." Dana's face drained of all color. Derek stepped forward angrily. "This has to be fake." Judge Whitaker raised a hand. "Enough." He read through the document slowly, eyes narrowing at the key lines. "All property belongs to Maeve. Dana forfeits inheritance if she attempts to remove her mother." He looked over his glasses at them. "Did you know about this clause?" Dana clenched her fists. Derek shook his head violently. "She's manipulating you," he yelled. "She's confused." The judge tapped the paper. "This is legally binding and notarized. It supersedes all previous versions." Dana whispered, horrified. "Dad wrote that." Her voice cracked. Her eyes filled with tears. Not of sorrow, but of someone watching their greed crumble. I wasn't done. I slid the second document across the table. "The lot behind our home is also mine. My husband purchased it in full. He intended it as a safeguard if anyone ever tried to force me out." The judge read it. Then he leaned back, locking eyes with Dana and Derek. "This is not a case of helping an elderly parent. This is a case of coercion and attempted property theft." Derek snapped. "We were doing what was best for yourselves," the judge cut in sharply. Dana burst into tears. "Mom, why didn't you tell me about this?" I looked at her gently. "Because you never asked, dear. You only planned." The room fell silent. Judge Whitaker's voice echoed. "The petition is denied. The property remains entirely in Mrs. Hollinger's name. And given the evidence, I strongly advise Mrs. Hollinger to seek legal protection against coercion." Dana covered her face. Derek cursed under his breath as the judge left. For the first time ever, neither of them had power in their voices. I stood, feeling lighter than I had in years. But winning the case didn't heal the wound my daughter left. And soon, a confession came from her mouth that broke me more than the betrayal itself. Winning in court felt like justice, but nothing prepares a mother for the moment her child admits why she tried to betray you. After the courtroom emptied, I gathered my documents carefully and began walking toward the exit. Dana sat alone on one of the benches, shoulders trembling, eyes swollen and red from crying. Derek was nowhere to be seen. He had stormed out minutes earlier, choosing ego over loyalty, as usual. For a moment, I considered walking past her and letting silence be the punishment she earned. But a mother's heart is a strange, stubborn thing. Something in me told me to stop. "Dana," I said softly. She didn't lift her head. "Mom." Her voice cracked. "Please don't hate me." I sat beside her. "I don't hate you," I whispered. "But I do need to understand." She wiped her face, then looked at me with a kind of broken honesty I hadn't seen in years. The story behind her betrayal. "Mom," she said shakily, "I never wanted to take you home. This whole thing, it wasn't my idea." My heart tightened. She continued. "Derek told me we needed the money to pay off debts from investments he made. He said the house was the fastest way to fix everything." I swallowed hard. "But that doesn't explain why you agreed." Dana closed her eyes. "Because," She struggled to speak. Because I was scared to lose him. Her voice cracked deeply. He told me if I didn't support him, if I didn't choose our marriage over you, he'd leave me. She covered her face in shame. And I was weak. I chose wrong. I chose him. A tear rolled down her cheek. I didn't realize. I was choosing someone who only loved what I gave, not who I was. She turned to me fully, her face drenched in regret. Mom, I'm so sorry. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream that she had broken my heart and almost destroyed everything her father left behind. But looking at her, small, terrified, and manipulated, all I saw was the little girl I raised. The girl who used to hold my hand when crossing the street. The girl whose nightmares I soothed. The girl who once whispered, "Mommy, I'll never leave you." She leaned her head on my shoulder, like she had when she was 5. "I failed you," she sobbed. "I let someone else turn me against you." I stroked her hair gently, as tears filled my own eyes. "No, sweetheart," I whispered. "You lost yourself. It happens. What matters is whether you find your way back." Before Dana could respond, Derek re-entered the hallway. But this time, his face wasn't smug. It was twisted with anger. "You're still here," he barked. "We need to leave. Now." Dana flinched and instinctively shrank back. I saw fear in her eyes. Real, suffocating fear. Derek grabbed her arm. "We're not done talking," he snarled. I stood up immediately. "You will not touch my daughter," I said, my voice cold as steel. For a moment, he hesitated. He hadn't expected resistance from me. Not here. Not now. But before anything escalated, a courthouse security guard approached. "Is everything all right here?" Derek let go of Dana's arm quickly. "We're fine," he spit, and stormed out again. Dana watched him leave, with trembling hands. Then she whispered, "Mom, I'm scared to go home." I took her hand firmly. "You're not going home with him." She looked up at me, confused. "Then where?" I squeezed her hand. "Home," I said softly. "With me." But taking her home didn't mean our battle was over, because the man who almost destroyed us wasn't ready to let her go. I thought taking my daughter home meant she was safe. But danger always knocks one more time before it finally leaves. I brought Dana back to my home, the place she had once tried to take from me. But now, she walked inside not as my betrayer, but as my frightened child. Shaking and exhausted, she sat quietly on the sofa, while I made tea the way she liked it as a girl. Sweet, milky, with a pinch of cardamom. When I handed it to her, her hands trembled. "Mom," she whispered, "what if he comes looking for me?" I placed a hand over hers. "He won't come here. He has no right." But deep down, I knew men like Derek rarely let go peacefully. Around 9 p.m., the first knock came. A sharp, angry rapping that made the windows tremble. Dana froze. I stepped toward the door. "Mom, don't open it," she whispered. But I had lived longer than Derek had breathed, and I was no longer scared. I opened the door. Just a crack. Derek stood there, face flushed with rage. "I know she's inside," he said sharply. "Bring her out." I kept my voice calm. "She's not going anywhere." He slammed his hand against the door. "You can't keep her from me." I met his eyes without flinching. "No, Derek. You kept her from herself. I'm simply giving her back." He growled under his breath. "This isn't over." Then he stormed off into the night. Half an hour later, the second knock came. Louder. Faster. more desperate. Dana jumped so violently that the tea splashed onto her hand. Mom, he's not going to stop. He'll break in. I squeezed her shoulder. No. He thinks intimidation wins. But he's forgotten something. What? She whispered. That this is my home. And I've survived worse storms. Near midnight, the third knock shook the doorframe. This time, he wasn't alone. Through the peephole, I saw one of his friends behind him. A tall man with a cold stare. Dana grabbed my arm. Mom, please, call someone. Call anyone. Before I could respond, I heard Derek shouting, Dana, you either come out now, or I swear. His friend put a hand on Derek's shoulder, trying to pull him back. But Derek shoved him away. No, she belongs with me. My blood ran cold. Belongs? As if she were a possession. A thing. A property. I opened the door fully. Dana gasped. Mom. But I wasn't afraid. I stood in the doorway, blocking Derek's path, with a strength I didn't know I still had. You will not speak to her, I said. You will not touch her. You will not come here again. He stepped forward angrily. You think you can stop me? You think she'll choose you over me? His voice cracked. Not with power, but with the panic of a man losing control. I took one small step forward. Derek, listen carefully. He froze. Because when a mother speaks, with her full heart and full fury, even the cruel listen. You twisted her mind, isolated her, made her fear every step she took. His face twitched. But she is not yours, I continued. She is not a tool. And she is not a cage for your ego. I leaned closer. She is my daughter. And I am her mother. And you are nothing but a bad memory she will recover from. His face went white. Behind him, his friend stepped forward. Derek, let's go, man. This isn't worth it. But Derek wasn't ready. He clenched his fists. You'll regret this, old woman. I didn't flinch. No. The only regret here is that she ever met you. His friend grabbed his arm firmly. Derek. Enough. Finally. Finally. They walked away. Not strong. Not victorious. But defeated. Like two shadows shrinking in the darkness. Dana collapsed into my arms, crying harder than she had in years. Mom. I'm so sorry for everything. I held her tightly. You're free now, I whispered. And freedom always begins with one brave step. But even though he finally walked away, the damage he left behind was deeper than I realized. And the next morning, my daughter told me something that shattered me completely. I thought I finally understood why my daughter stayed with him. But the truth she revealed broke me in ways the betrayal never did. The morning after Derek tried to force his way back into her life, the house was painfully quiet. Dana sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in one of my old sweaters, her hands cupped around a mug of tea she hadn't taken a single sip of. Her eyes stared into nothing. Not angry, not sad, just empty. I knew that look. It was the look of someone who had carried a heavy secret for far too long. I sat down across from her. Dana, I said softly, you're safe now. You can talk to me. She swallowed hard and placed the mug down carefully, as if afraid it might shatter in her hands. Mom. Her voice was weak, cracked, fragile. There's something I've never told you. I nodded quietly, letting her speak in her own time. She took a breath. I didn't stay with Derek because I loved him. A tear slipped down her cheek. I stayed because I was ashamed. Ashamed of what? I whispered. She looked at her trembling hands. Ashamed that I chose a man you never approved of. Ashamed that I moved in with him against your advice. Ashamed that I lost friends, lost myself, lost everything because of him. Her voice cracked deeper. I knew you were right, Mom. I always knew. The words stabbed into my chest like a knife. Because mothers don't want to be right. Mothers want their children to be safe. Dana wiped her eyes, but they filled again instantly. Mom. She took a shaking breath. He threatened me. My blood ran cold. How? She stared at the table as she spoke. He told me that if I ever left him, he'd make sure everyone believed I was the one hurting him. He'd tell people that I abused him, that I was unstable, that I was dangerous. She sobbed. He said, "The world always believes the man first." I reached across the table and took her hand firmly. "Oh, sweetheart." But she wasn't done. She looked up, eyes swollen, voice barely above a whisper. "Mom, he told me that if I ever walked away from him, he'd hurt you." My heart stopped. What? He said you were old. You live alone. No security system. And he knew your routine. He said an accident could happen any time. Terror coursed through my veins. She sobbed harder. I stayed with him to protect you. Not because I loved him. Not because I was afraid for myself. But because I was afraid for you. Her body shook uncontrollably. I was trapped, Mom. And I couldn't tell you. I couldn't risk you getting hurt because of me. The room seemed to spin around me. My daughter. The same daughter who betrayed me, lied to me, nearly stole my home, had been living in fear. For my safety. Not her own. Mine. I moved from my chair and knelt beside her. She leaned forward and cried into my shoulder like she hadn't cried in decades. Mom, I'm sorry for everything I did. I didn't want to lose him, but I also didn't want to lose you. I held her tightly. You never lost me, I whispered. Not for a moment. Not even when you turned your back on me. A mother's heart doesn't break that easily. She clung to me, her tears soaking the collar of my sweater. For a long time, we didn't speak. We just held each other. Two broken women, trying to rebuild what fear had destroyed. But healing isn't complete until you confront the source of your pain. And soon, I realized Derek wasn't finished. He had one more move left. And this time, it would change everything. He thought he'd broken us. But the thing about broken women is they often come back stronger and smarter. The days after Dana's confession were quiet. Not peaceful. Just quiet. We walked like shadows in my home, trying to stitch the relationship back together. In small ways. A cup of tea. A shared laugh. Silent tears we didn't talk about. But peace isn't peace when you're still watching the door. Derek hadn't returned. Not yet. But I knew his silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived. It was typed and signed. But the tone was unmistakable. Return my wife, or I'll take back what's mine. And make sure the both of you suffer. Dana read it and began to tremble again. He'll never stop, she whispered. No matter where I go. That's when I said the words I never thought I'd say. Then we won't run anymore. We'll face him. The next morning, I drove us to a women's legal aid center. Dana gave a full statement. She didn't sugarcoat it. She told them everything. The control. The fear. The threats. The manipulation. The way he used me as a weapon to keep her chained. They listened. They documented. Within a week, we had a court-issued restraining order. A security system installed at the house. Legal assistance for divorce and asset protection. A plan. A team. A fresh start. Dana was terrified at first. But I reminded her. You're not alone this time. The day Derek was served with papers. He showed up one last time. Only this time. He didn't knock. He stood at the edge of the lawn, screaming like a wounded animal. You think you've won? You're nothing without me, Dana. You'll come crawling back. We didn't respond. I had already called the police. As the sirens approached, I stepped out onto the porch and met his eyes one last time. You were wrong about her, I said. And about me. He laughed bitterly. You're both pathetic. I smiled. No. We're both free. The officers led him away. And just like that, the storm was over. A few months later, Dana signed her divorce papers. With a calm hand and a steady heart, she enrolled in counseling. Then part-time college. She started helping me in the garden. The same one her father once planted. With his bare hands. We opened a small tailoring shop together. Thread and Grace, she named it. She said it was because you used thread to stitch our lives back together, and grace to forgive what I thought couldn't be forgiven. One warm spring evening, we sat on the porch sipping tea. She turned to me and asked, Mom, how did you not give up on me? I smiled. Because I know the difference between a daughter who's gone and one who's just lost. She nodded slowly, eyes soft. I love you, Mom. I never stopped loving you, I whispered. And we sat there in the golden light, not as broken people, but as two survivors, two women who refused to let fear be the final chapter.